Hello everybody, welcome to this week's live stream. My name's David Jones. It's been a crazy week this week, as for me anyway, but we'll have a look in a second at some of these big moves in the markets just to explain how this works. I normally do this every Friday at 2:30 UK time. We'll have a quick look at some of the major events to watch out for this week. Next week, sorry. It's been a big week for events this week. We've had the US interest rate decision and also the US GDP data yesterday, which sent markets a bit wild. And also, the Bank of Japan as well. And there's quite a few announcements next week. It's been a crazy week. If you look at something like the dollar, yesterday, this move in the dollar index, it was trading down at its lowest for about a week. And within a couple of hours, it pushed up to its best levels for a couple of weeks. So loads of volatility. So we'll take a look at all of this as well. It's been a tough week for my own trading this week. You know, I always talk about the trades I've got running and the performance so far. We'll take a look at that as well. So it's been a difficult week this week, but it's not all unicorns and fairy dust, is it? But before we get into it, let's just go through some of the housekeeping. First of all, let's just do a risk warning for the sake of good order. So the presentation is only for educational purposes. It does not contain and should not be construed as containing investment advice or an investment recommendation or an offer of or solicitation for a transaction in any financial instrument. David Jones accepts no responsibility for any use that may be made of these comments and for any consequences that result. You should consider whether you understand how spread bets, CFDs, futures, foreign exchange work, and whether you can afford to take the high risk of losing your money. Trading is risky. Right, so next week, there's a lot happening next week. Perhaps not as big a deal as the week we've just been through, but still some fairly significant announcements anyway. So on Monday, we've got EU inflation. Inflation clearly still a big topic. We've seen inflation in the US fall quite sharply over the months. Not so much the case in the UK and the EU, so that's due out Monday. Then on Tuesday we've got US PMI, so the Purchasing Managers Index, factory gate inflation. And then Thursday, UK interest rate. The broad expectation is for the Bank of England to raise rates by, I think is it a quarter, isn't it? I think is what's expected next Thursday by the Bank of England. We had better than expected inflation data for the UK last week, wasn't it? So already some people are starting to rein in just how high the Bank of England might have to go on interest rates. And then on Friday this time next week, it's the usual big one, US non-farm payrolls. So the US unemployment numbers come out on this time next week. So plenty to keep us busy throughout the week. A quick word from my sponsor, the sponsor, which is me. I run a trading course. You can find out more about it by going to the website. I'll do the website in a second. Medium-term trading is one part of the course, running positions for weeks and months. My biggest winner this year on that side of things has been the NASDAQ trade that I put on the 14th of Feb. I came out of that just this week, actually. And then the shorter-term trading, which I'll talk about in a second, running positions, not so much for hours. I mean, normally if I hold the position for a couple of hours, it's normally because I've been wrong and I get stopped out. But typically running it for days. I've got the longest shorter term trade I've got running at the moment is long oil. And I've been long oil since Wednesday of last week. So that's been running for about 10 days. As part of the course, you get 4 live webinars. There's a WhatsApp group as well that I'm in and commenting every day. When I launched the short term trading course last year, I publicly traded this account for 3 months. Started off with £4,000. By the end of January, the account was up. I'd made profits of almost 2,200. You can see it there. 66% of trades were winners, which is better than my normal average. That's that. So a great return. I've been doing it again. We'll have a look at the latest performance over the last 3 months. But there's a WhatsApp group. Now, I've changed this WhatsApp group in the last month. You don't have to have done the course to join the WhatsApp group. You can pay for it separately. You can subscribe separately if you want to. In the WhatsApp group, I do a daily update, markets I'm watching for the day, trades I'm running, updates on stops, all that sort of stuff, and any Q&A during the day as well. If you sign up for the WhatsApp group, you can get 20% off the first month. All the details are in the the description to the video. But if you use the code YouTube, you get a 20% discount for the first month in the WhatsApp group. So there you go. That's a typical screenshot of what I will post in the morning. Bit of chat, what markets I'm looking at, and a chart of the day thing in there as well. So to look at my performance so far, so I mentioned last year I did this publicly traded thing from November to the end of January. I'm doing the same thing again from May, beginning of May to the end of July, which is now or Monday. And I started off with 5 grand in this account. At the moment, so it's a real account with real money. I put 5,000 in there. I thought that's a number that everyone can relate to. You know, you might not have 5,000, you might have much more than 5,000, but I thought 5 grand was a fair enough number. So I've given back profit this week, but to look at the numbers, at the moment, you can't see this, but the total equity of that account is just over 7,400. The P&L, it's running at the moment £360 of open P&L. In closed profits, this is the performance over the 3 months. You can see it hopefully here from May. You might not be able to see it because the font is quite small. But from May to July, so win rate, 58%. So 58% of trades have been profitable, which is my long-term historical average. So 58% of trades have made money. So almost 6 out of 10 of trades make money. Risk reward, 1.25. It's not bad. It could be better. So basically, if I lose 100 quid on a trade when I'm wrong, I make 125 pounds on a trade if I'm right. If we scroll down to here, 48 trades overall since the beginning of May, and some open positions. I'll show you those in a second. But 28 winners, 28 losers. Booked profits on this £5,000 account of 3,116. So 3,116. Open profits at the moment of 360. So overall, this snapshot now, profits open and closed of 3,476 since the beginning of May, which is a return so far 69%. So it was 80+%, I think, a week ago. Like I said, I've given back some profit. But again, you know, I've got to say that past performance is no guarantee of future performance, but that's what this real account has done over the last almost 3 months now, using the approaches I talk about in the course, and I talk about the trades I'm thinking about doing in the WhatsApp group. So open positions, there's a mix of stuff at the moment in there. There's a few stock trades in there. What's doing well? This stock, there's a sugar trade in there, Alphabet, Google, dollar yen. I've been long dollar yen since March, I think. A few other bits and pieces. And then there's also this account that we'll use today, a different account, again with real money. This is the one I use for the random trades that we place during these YouTube live sessions. And that's up about 50% since that account opened. So I opened that account with £2,000 back in whenever it was. I think it was March of this year. Let's look at the numbers. So it's done, again, 58% win rate. Interesting. Exactly the same win rate. Okay. But 19 trades, 11 winners, 8 losers, 956 quid of booked profit. Open profit at the moment is 330. And those are the open trades, which some of you might recognize from previous live sessions. We'll see if you do any trades today. So that's it. So I do that because there are lots of trading courses out there, and most of them are rubbish, and most people who run them don't trade. I do that to demonstrate that I do actually do it, to make these smaller accounts public. So to find out more, go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. If you want to join the WhatsApp group, just to try things out, if you go to subscribe here, and you can join the WhatsApp group, and you can put in the code YouTube and get that 20% discount for the first month, and try it and see. And if you hate it, you can cancel. Okay, that's it. All the details are in the description of this video. Let's get into it and have a look at some stuff. Where did you start this week? I mean, I came into this week. There were two things I was looking for this week. I was looking to be a buyer of the dip in the Nasdaq or the S&P. So this was the beginning of the week here. That was my thing to watch for the week. And I was also on the dollar, or the dollar had the sell-off I was trying to, where was Friday? So that was the end of last week. I was going to try and buy a dip in dollar index, but also see what was happening with pound against the dollar. Would we see a recovery there? So that's where I was coming into this week, but I didn't want to trade the dollar index before Wednesday, before the interest rate decision was out of the way. And it just continued to sell off on Wednesday and into Thursday. Then we had these crazy moves here. So it's been, I've done 2 trades this week, which is a bit low by my standards. But I think it has been a bit of a baffling week for me anyway. But let's start with the big picture. Let's start off with these stock market indices. So I am long the S&P. I've got a medium-term trade on the S&P. As I've said before, most of my pensions and ISAs are S&P or Nasdaq ETFs, exchange-traded funds. This trend is still up on the S&P. Here's the S&P trend from March of this year. We did break out to a new recovery high just yesterday on the S&P, so I very much buy the dips. If I was looking for a target, I don't really trade with targets. If I was looking for a target, these highs, March 2022 highs, around 46.50. Let's see what happens when it gets up to there. But I'm absolutely a buyer of the dips on the S&P. And for me, at the very least, it would take a slide below 4,400 to even suggest this trend was in trouble. So I'd be quite happy to see a deeper sell-off. I think it makes it a bit more interesting. It's been a bit one-way traffic in July. Let's see what happens, but I'm buy the dips on the S&P. The only note of caution, and I put it in the WhatsApp group this morning, we had those really good economic numbers from the US this week. So the market was expecting GDP growth of 1.8%, and it came in at 2.4%. I just wonder, does the media and the wider commentary, rather than worrying about a recession in the US, now start talking about, oh, there's going to be no recession, let's all pile into the stock market? Moves like that can be a contrary indicator. So I'd be a bit, maybe, let's see how things go over the next few weeks. But if suddenly the commentary around stock markets is less worrying about a US recession and more about, oh, is this market going to go to the moon? Let's all pile on. Then I'd be a bit more concerned. But for now, the trend is up, blah, blah, blah. I'm buying the dips. Nasdaq, same for the Nasdaq. I've missed the opportunities this week, arguably, and we'll have a look at the second in the short term, but, the trend is still up on the Nasdaq. The trend on the Nasdaq has been up all this year. What's the Nasdaq done this year? So we've gone from 11,000 to 15,700. So that is a 4,700 move. So it's nearly 50%, isn't it? 40% plus move on the Nasdaq this year. It's a big move in 7 months. So again, perhaps we'll see a more cautious next few months, but I am still by the dips on the Nasdaq. If I was looking for a target, then my target has to be a run back to the old all-time highs from November 21. So up around 16.7. Let's see. But the trades I've been watching this level, and I highlighted it again in the WhatsApp group, watching this level all this week. Arguably, I could have done a trade on it yesterday, but the market was still tanking into the close yesterday. And because it was such a crazy day, I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a miss. But for me, if I was a buyer of the Nasdaq now in the short term, the absolute closest, my stop is going below 15,380. And the market. So if we get a dip this afternoon, it could be interesting. And let's not forget, just yesterday, the market ran up 300 points and then completely gave it up from about 6 o'clock onwards. So we have had somewhat crazy markets this week. So I'm quite happy to be patient on the Nasdaq and see what happens. And if I miss it, I miss it. I do have like I said, a long S&P at the moment from, I think it was back here somewhere. I can't remember. I bought the breakout, whatever. Let's see what happens with the Nasdaq. But stock market, same old, crazy week. but all still bullish. If you look at the DAX, the German market, I do have a long medium-term DAX trade on, which I've had since April, I think. On this one, it's breaking out today. And I think it's interesting here. It's an interesting one for next week, the DAX. We have these old levels from November 21, Jan 22, around about 16.3. And it's been faffing around since May, trying to push through these levels. And it's always run out of steam. So the question is, this time round, is this time different? Are we going to see an actual proper breakout now? For me, I'm quite happy to wait till next week. But if it does continue higher next week, I'll be adding to my existing long position on the DAX. This is another one I was watching this week. Here, when it started selling off, we'd had this trend on the DAX, this gradual trend since a week last Monday. Nice trend, chugging along. And this was Wednesday of this week. And again, I put in the WhatsApp group, I'd be a buyer of the dip, but I'd want my stop below 16,000. I'd rather see a deeper sell-off. And the thing absolutely sold off like a maniac. And did trade as low as 16,008 on Wednesday, but then rallied like a maniac as well. So I missed that. But I think that's another interesting market to watch next week based off the dailies. Are we seeing a breakout? Let's see. And are we just going to see this market power higher from here? Let's see what happens. FTSE is another one. It's not as clear cut as the DAX, I think, and the FTSE is a slightly different market. But I think it's interesting. We've bounced back up on the FTSE to this spiky high from mid-June. So I think there's a couple of ways of looking at this. The FTSE is about to break out properly next week. Or if you wanted to go short the FTSE, we got a great level to go short. If I was going to go short up here, probably the closest I'd have my stop would be above these old highs, maybe 7,800. A more aggressive stop would be above today's high. It's probably too aggressive for me. But let's see what happens. You know, it has been broadly sideways this year. We haven't had a trend in the FTSE. We've seen some big swings, like 10% swings up and down, but no big trend. So let's see. So for me, not so much interesting for next week, the FTSE. And the Nikkei, I'd absolutely be a buyer of the dip in the Nikkei, Japanese market. Big move today. A lot of volatility again. I mean, it's trading where it was a week and a half ago, pretty much, but we are getting a lot of volatility. But the trend is still up. The trend since whenever it is, March of 2023, is still up. So for me, I would be a buyer now. If I was a buyer now, I'd put my stop under 31.4 or buy the dip, whatever. But the trend is still up. So interesting next week. So for me, probably the focus will be the DAX, this breakout. Is it a breakout? And this NASDAQ and S&P after a particularly crazy week. So a couple to watch there for me. Oil, I am still long oil. It's been a good trade, oil, in the end this week. And actually, if you look on the what's-its, on the hourlies, it has been, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, it has been one of the cleanest trends that we've had in July. I've got to readjust the trend line. But, you know, considering some of the volatility we've seen in other markets, the price of oil since these lows in June, around $67, we're now at 80. It's a big old move, isn't it? 20% move in the price of oil in a month. Anyway, I'm still long oil where did I buy in? I can't remember. I bought in first of all in here, got taken out, and then bought back in, got taken out there, and then bought back in here. So I've been in since about 76 on oil, and I've got a trailing stop. It did make a new high for the trend yesterday. I would still be a buyer of the dips in oil. So I think that's an interesting market to watch next week. Probably the closest I would have my stop is the other side of 78. The market's currently 79.60. So that's the hourly. On the hourlies, the trend is still going. So that's interesting. But on the dailies, it's still pretty boring. You know, if we look at the trend for oil, there we go. Over the last 7-8 months, we're pretty sideways. And we are getting near to what had been a problem area earlier this year. So short term still bullish. 82 to 84, let's say, has been a problem all this year. So how much is there really left in the tank? There is a bit of bearish divergence on the RSI. So we've seen the market move up and move higher. The RSI, we've got lower highs. So perhaps we are getting a bit vulnerable on the price of oil up here on the dailies, but on the hourlies, still all good. So that's that. Natural gas. It's got a bit messy again for me, natural gas. I've traded it a bit in the past in this account, in the YouTube account. So it came out, so £113 there. This was the same trade. The contracts just rolled over. So it made 170, 168 pounds, whatever it was, on the last natural gas trade. I think it's a tricky one now. You know, we've had this big downtrend since last year. Arguably, that's come to an end with the moves we've seen over the past few months. You know, we're seeing natural gas make a base, but it can't break through $3. And it's gone a bit quiet over the last month. So I'm a bit non-committal, I think, on natural gas. If I was looking at the short term, what's the trade in the short term? I don't know. Arguably be a seller because it's broken out of this sideways range. Be a seller with a stop above 270 or something like that. Should we do that trade? There's me saying I think it's a boring market and we're just going to do a trade. Let's do a trade. Let's take the view that we'd had this run higher. I think that trend's gone. It's all a bit sideways, natural gas. We've had a run higher. It's broken down out of this range. Perhaps that's an interesting trade to do. Broken down. It's tried to rally. It can't rally. Blah, blah, blah. Let's do a trade. I'm going to put a stop above these old highs. Let's do that trade to get something on the scoreboard at the beginning of the thing. Let me just bring up a chart because I'm going to trade the futures contract, which is a little bit different to the cash market. So I just want to make sure I got my levels right. So what I'm going to do, stops above these old highs, 76, 78. Let's say I'm going to go 82. So I'm going to go 83. Let's make it easy as it's trading at 263. So let's go. We're going to go 83, 283 on a stop, 2.83 stop. What's the risk? $200 if I sell one contract. That'll do. Let's place the trade. Let's see. Let's see what happens with that one. I think that's an interesting enough trade to do, isn't it? So taking the view, it's been a bit sideways, it's broken down, it's tried to rally today, but is it going to run out of steam and just sell off perhaps back to the lows from mid-July? Let's see how that trade works out. But overall, I think it's a little bit boring. Natural gas, perhaps. So that's that. So oil and natural gas. Oil is the more interesting market. Let's take a look at some of the currencies. Dollar index. I mean, it's difficult for me anyway. I mean, I came into this week wondering, is there going to be a rally? Because we ended last week looking like that. So it had broken below the lows for the year. The lows in Feb, the low in April, broke below. And I thought, is it perhaps gone a bit too far? As it turned out, it has. It's just been a little bit crazy. So for me, that's perhaps one for next week, more of an hourly trade. So I would next week be watching. What are we watching? Perhaps this little funny trend. See what happens if it comes under some pressure later today or early next week. But a messy couple of days for me. So not much interest for me in that in the short term. Euro dollar. Again, that is a buy the dip market for me. It's just how far does the dip go? So if you look on the dailies for euro dollar look like that. So that's off the lows in September last year. I was a buyer. There we go. I don't know what's going on there. If I was a buyer today, I put a stop loss the other side of at least 108 for me, but it's still a bit weak today. So let's see what happens next week. But that looks like a buy the dip market in the medium term for me. Pound against the dollar, it's been a bit all over the place. I did buy this. I bought this yesterday, short-term trade yesterday, but sticking with the medium term. If I take it off this low here, you know, the trend on pound against the dollar is up. Another interesting one to watch next week. It has pushed a bit lower today. I bought it yesterday. I've got a stop the other side of 127.40. Let's see what happens. Perhaps we just have a day of chop on this one. while it makes its mind up. Gold and silver, I am long gold. I've been long gold since 1963, the level, not the year. So I've been long gold from in here, I think, the other week. And it pushed up to 1980, absolutely tanked yesterday on this dollar strength. I'm still long gold. My stop is at the side of 1940. I think it's a bit of a confused market. On the daily chart, we did have this trend. That trend has gone. Not too exciting. Let's see what happens on the hourlies. Can it claw its way back up and see what happens? Silver, again, of course, silver slammed yesterday on that dollar strength. But the trend for silver since September last year, still up. If I was buying into that trend, I'd probably like to see a bigger sell-off. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Not too much interest for me in silver. And then, we didn't do dollar yen because dollar yen, again, had a crazy one, didn't it? Let's have a look at dollar yen, then we'll jump onto Bitcoin, then we're done. So dollar yen, I mean, the trend is still up from 16th of Jan. So I'm in from about April somewhere in this trend. Bullish engulfing for fans of the old candles today. So let's see where it ends today. I suppose, from a short-term trade point of view, if I was a buyer today, the closest I would have my stop, I'd probably go back to these lows from last week, either 137.60 or 137.20. But you can see just the craziness over the last couple of days. But, volatility, but the bigger trend in dollar yen is still up. And finally, Bitcoin. It's been pretty boring, really. Again, same old for me on Bitcoin. The trend since Jan is up. Bang, bang, bang. I'd buy the dip. I'd rather see a deeper dip. But yeah, that's it. I think it would take weakness through 24,500 for me to change my view on the medium-term trend on Bitcoin. But still up overall. So that's it. So what's interesting next week? For me, stock markets, this Nasdaq's getting a bit of a move on, isn't it? Nasdaq and S&P, as ever, are interesting. DAX is interesting. Is this a breakout? If this is a proper breakout, it's a pretty major breakout. We're after having quite a few goes since May. It's a big level to break this. So that's an interesting market, I think, for next week. Oil, because the trend has been good, so good. Over the last month. I think that's interesting. And just this whole dollar shenanigans, given what we've seen this week. So, yeah, lots to watch next week. So let's just jump back onto here. As usual, we'll now go and have a look at the stuff you want looking at. But if you want to join that WhatsApp group or you want to join the training course, go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk, and there are all the details in there. And if you use the code YouTube, you get a discount off the first month. So it's like a live stream, but every day. Can you imagine that? How brilliant that is, for less than the price of a cup of coffee per day. Right, let's have a look at these markets then. Look at the stuff you want to look at. Let's just go back to the beginning. It's just, okay, someone's on from Australia. The first of many questions around your comments about available funds to place a live trade. Are you always running close to a margin call? No, not really. I mean, I do run lots of trades. If you look at this account here, this is the YouTube account that's started off with $2,000. At the moment, that account, it was worth 3,150. The margin requirement is 1150. So I'm using less than 50% of the money there. In the other account, the account that started with $5,000, the balance at the moment is 7.5. The margin requirement is 5,700. So normally the most I go is usually 70% of the available funds I'll have tied up in margin. So I think I've only had one margin call in the last 3.5 years, and that was on the COVID sell-off in March 2023. So I use the margin in the account. If I'm not using much margin, I'd rather have the money in my bank anyway, so I'll take it out of the account. But yeah, typically 60 to 70%-ish of the funds will be tied up in margin, so I don't get margin calls very often. We looked at oil, didn't we? We had a look at oil. We did that. Gold, silver, pound against the dollar, dollar yen. Let's get rid of that picture of the Simpsons from 20 years ago. We did that. Bank Nifty analysis. What's Bank Nifty? Is that some nifty Bank Nifty? Is it an actual bank or is it an index? What do we think? Okay, no idea what it is. What does it say? It's an index, Nifty Bank. I'm guessing, is it the Indian banking sector index? I mean, that looks bullish to me, doesn't it? Let's have a look. If we pick up on this trend from whenever, when does that trend go back to? March 2020. That's interesting. That's almost completely avoided any sort of bear market, doesn't it? But you know, quite a big breakout. You know, we were talking about breakouts on the DAX, weren't we? Quite a big breakout recently. I would buy the dip as usual. You know, we broke out to could well be all-time highs up here in July for the Bank Nifty. So for me, if I was a buyer, it's still drifting a bit today. Interesting one to watch next week. If I was a buyer next week, then for me on stops on the Bank Nifty, or the Nifty Bank, whatever it's called, I would probably have my stops at least the other side of 43,300. But no, interesting looking chart, that one. Yeah, but looks strong to me. So it's another one for the buy the dip folder. That one, the old Nifty. Datadog, DDOG. So a stock, Datadog, Nasdaq stock. Okay. I think that's another buy the dipper for me. That's another sort of a recovery stock, isn't it? Because we had this trend down. So what do they do? Just says package software. So they were nearly $200 November 21. Datadog. Where are they now? And we have had a bit of a turnaround. You know, for me, what's gone on during June is that trend actually reversing and this not being just a dead cat bounce. So I'd rather buy a dip, buy the Datadog dip. If I was a buyer today, the closest I would have my stop is the other side of here, probably. Should we buy it? Let's buy it. Why not? Let's go crazy. $90 was a big level. It sort of faffed around here and here, and it's come back and been support. Let's go 88. So we'll buy it and put a stop at 88. So my assumption is here, it's turned around this downtrend. We're building this new uptrend since May. So I'm going to be a buyer with a stop at 88. Let's see actually, first of all, is it covered? DDOG. There we go. DDOG. Buy. Okay, so let's see, how many do you have to buy? So I'm going to go stop at, what did I say for the stop? 88, didn't I? Yeah, that looks okay, doesn't it? So stop at 88. Let's say we want to risk a couple of hundred things. Dollars, the minimum is 13. Fine, we'll do 13 then. I don't know if I've got enough margin. Have I got enough margin? Yes. Okay, so we're going to buy 13 Datadog at wherever it is, 112.58 with a stop down at 88. Let's put that trade on. Let's see how that one goes. Interesting one to watch that though. I do trade a few stocks as well. What did I buy this week? I bought Apple this week somewhere. And I bought FTNT, whatever they do, Fortinet. That's not done so well. The Apple's doing all right. But no, that DDOG is an interesting one. Let's see how it works out. What do you hold in your SIP? Oh, it's pretty boring, my SIP. It's mainly Nasdaq and S&P, exchange traded funds. I can't remember the code for them. There are loads of them. I've got a couple of shares, but not many. I've got Anglo American. I forgot about those. I've got Anglo American. I only bought those. I think I bought those about 24 quid. Speculating that this was going to turn around. Hasn't yet. I used to have those, British American Tobacco. I've got that, whatever that is. Bankers Investment Trust, which has done nothing. Got this Latin American thing. Bankers Latin American Investment Trust, BRLRA. That is the Nasdaq tracker. There we go. Invesco Nasdaq tracker. That must be the S&P tracker. iShares S&P tracker. Got some HSBC shares in there as well. But the bulk of it, 80% of it, is Nasdaq and S&P trackers. So yeah, that's that. Two AI ETFs, AIQ, Global X, Artificial Intelligence and Technology ETF. I'd go short. Oh, I wouldn't go short yet though. I do wonder, is it, I mean, it is clearly, it's the flavour of the moment, isn't it? But the trend is up. Who am I to buck a trend? So I would be a buyer of the dip. It's interesting, isn't it? So this AI ETF, have they just constructed that, or has it actually been running since July 2018? Well, I don't know, whatever. I would buy the dip though. So if I would, and the closest I'd have my stop would be the other side of $27 for me on that one. So yeah. And what was the other one? Bots. What a great name for AI ETF. Oh, it's saying no, it's done all right, isn't it? It's a similar looking chart, isn't it? I'd buy the dip though. The trends look good, don't they? Despite my cynicism, the trends look okay. They look really good. Yeah, I would buy that, and I'd put a stop the other side of, let's say, 27. So there we go. So 40% of the time, do the opposite of what you really want to do. Well, unfortunately, I don't know which 58% of trades are going to be the winners in my own trading, and which 42% are going to be the losers. So at least the RSI is showing bearish divergence. ASX 200. So is that the what's it? The Aussie, isn't it? ASX 200, the Aussie 2000 index cash. What's that look like? It's interesting. That's a funny old market, that, isn't it? Is how I would classify that one. It's been, I mean, broadly sideways. Actually, I mean, big swings, but so since August 21, really sideways. What a massive problem this 7,600 has been for the Aussie index, and here we are running away again. So again, I'd be betting on it perhaps running out of steam up here. Let's see what happens. But if it breaks 7.6, an interesting market, because we've got a breakout on our hands again, isn't it? But that has been such a problem, hasn't it? Going back for ages now. Yeah. Oil, blah, blah, blah. Orange juice and the big breakout. Yeah. Do you know, I haven't traded this. I looked at it. I mentioned it in the WhatsApp group this week. It did have it because it broke out. It is a great trend anyway, orange juice, from November 21. And it broke out again. And we've had these breakouts before, and they sort of dip, and the dip is the opportunity. But this week's breakout is really motored. So I would absolutely buy a dip in orange juice. Have a look at Rivian. Rivian, the old electric van maker, isn't it? Weren't they the ones who famously, going back a few years now, did a demo of their electric van, but actually there weren't any electrics in it, so they just took the handbrake off and rolled it down the hill? I think that was Rivian. Anyway, what do you think? I don't know. I mean, I always hate these bombed out stocks, as I say. So they were trading at 180 at the height of EV mania, November 21. Obviously tanked since then. I mean, it does look like they've made a base. I mean, they've doubled. Just in the last month, they've doubled. So for me, I always hate chasing stuff. I'd rather see where the sell-off goes. If we get a bit of a sell-off, where does the sell-off go? But maybe they are finally turning the corner. But are they turning the corner under their own steam, or has somebody pushed it around the corner? Let's see. Let's see what happens with Rivian. So an interesting one if we get a bit of a sell-off for me. And Palantir. I always forget what these ones do. I always think they are a Palantir, isn't it? I always think they're a marijuana stock because of the plant thing, but they're not, are they? They're a tech company. That's another one. I mean, it's broken out and it's run a long way. It's doubled again in the last 2.5 months. You know, for me, I always have a problem, like I say, chasing this stuff. If I was a buyer today, I'd probably have my stop at $13. I'd rather see a deeper sell-off, but it does look like the worst is over for Palantir. So let's see. Euro yen, asks Nick. This is the one of the trades I did this week. Got stopped out of it this week. And then I tried to go short and I missed the short as well. Oh, that went ridiculous yesterday, didn't it? So Euro yen. Euro yen on the dailies, first of all. Let's start with the dailies. So bit of volatility. I would still be a buyer of the dip because I think if we go back to here, March 22 lows, the trend is still up, and it was only in the last month or so that it's hit all-time highs, or multi-year highs, whatever it is. it's just a bit nuts, isn't it? So maybe it's a wait and see one for me next week. You know, if we saw things calm down a bit next week, perhaps be a buyer. The closest I would have my stop is underneath yesterday's low, whatever that is, 151.40. So one to watch next week when it calms down a bit. But yeah, a really weird old market this week in Euro. I mean, you could argue, looking on the hourlies, the trend is down, isn't it? So actually, because the trade I was looking to do yesterday was to sell it, and it was, is this an hourly chart? Where was I looking? I think it was here, and it tanked, and I thought it tanked too much, and of course it fell off a cliff. Okay, arguably the sensible trade is to go short, isn't it? If we're looking at a short-term trade, go short. Long-term trade, the trend is still up. So mixed picture, but if I was going to go short, I would have my stop at least above yesterday's high. So yesterday's high is 156.23. So yeah, it's maybe a short, isn't it? Yes, that I'm talking myself into it. It's a short. Let's see what happens for the rest of today, but my stop would be at least above yesterday's high. Let's have a look. What's your opinion on getting funded by prop firms? I don't know much about it. I've got no interest in doing it myself. It does seem, from what I've read about it, it does seem a little bit rigged in favouring your failure. And I may well be being too harsh there. But some of the rules about the sort of drawdown you're allowed to have, where your account resets, you've got to pay to be funded again. You know, my drawdown this week has been like 15%, more than 15%, I think. And some of these prop funds funded stuff, you know, you had to have 5% drawdown. So even someone as brilliant as me would have to reset my prop account and start again. So yeah, I'm just a little bit, you know, and I've seen a lot of them seem to pop up over the last year. I see a lot of talk about it on YouTube, and I just think if there's a lot of something around trading, I normally assume it's for the company's favour and not my favour. But maybe I'm being too cynical. Like I say, I don't know too much about it. Copper, yes, I was long copper. I forgot about that. I got stopped out of that yesterday for a profit. It's a bit messy market, copper. We've got these converging trends. You know, we've got the trend from up here, March 22, arguably still down, and we've got the recovery trend since May of this year, still up. It needs to make its mind up and decide what it's doing. Actually, I could probably draw a better trend than that. I could pick it up off the July level. So I did buy it. I can't remember when. Last week I think I bought it. Did all right in the end, but we've got these mixed trends, haven't we? And it's just staying within them at the moment. So it's a bit of a mixed picture on copper. Short term, I mean, just look at it. Short term, it's just doing nothing, is it? I bought it. When did I buy it? In here, a week last Tuesday. I'd buy a sell-off down to 380 again, but if you look at that picture, it's definitely an argument for a sitting on your hands type market, isn't it, at the moment, I think, the old copper. Oh, Intel, yeah, didn't they have, what did they have? They had results out or something, didn't they? They've done all right today, haven't they? They've had a bit of a blip high. I mean, Intel is another buy the dip for me. You know, we had this downtrend for a while, and it's, you know, definitely turned it round this year. So it'll be a buy the dip stock for me. That one, Intel. Heating oil. I missed that. Someone mentioned heating oil. I missed that this week. I've been a bit all over the place this week. Heating oil is a really interesting market. Look at that downtrend for ages, and then bang uptrend, and a lovely trend on the hourlies. And I really probably should have bought it there Tuesday of this week, but I had the oil trade on, and I thought, is it basically a double bet on oil? It's done much better than oil. Lovely trend on heating oil. I don't think I've ever traded it, but I've started looking at it in the last couple of weeks. I buy the dip on heating oil, but I'm in a great run this week. Bought Apple 5 months ago, just laughing at how well they're doing. Yeah, it's just crazy, isn't it? I mean, again, you cannot argue with the trends. Breakout again here in June. Yeah, just buy the dip one for me. Oh, Nicola, sorry, I take everything back I said about Rivian. It was Nicola who had the car with the no electric power in. Rivian, I'm sure, are absolutely brilliant. EasyJet. Let's have a look at EasyJet. EasyJet. I wonder if they're getting affected by what's going on with all these terrible fires in Europe, Italy and Greece. Greece particularly bad, isn't it? EasyJet, I would be a buyer. It's an interesting one, EasyJet, actually. So EasyJet, the UK listed budget airline. The trend has been down since here, May 2021. So we were 2 years into it. It's trying to break out, isn't it? For me, I would argue the jury is perhaps still a little bit out. Has it actually broken out? But it has got knocked down to the lows. So it's maybe a trading buy on the lows. These 440 lows. Maybe looking to see, can it push to the top of the range. It's an interesting one, that. Let's do that one as well. EasyJet. Let's give it a bit of wiggle room, actually. Let's pretend that maybe this is the start of a bigger turnaround in EasyJet. So we want to try and hold it for a bigger move, perhaps. So let's go 415 as a stop on EasyJet. Let's try that. Let's bring that up. EasyJet. So EZJ, 415. So it's about 10% stop. What's the risk there? Stop loss, 415. I can trade many. Okay, 500. It's by 500. So by 500, EasyJet. I've got enough margin. Buying at 455. Stop at 415. Bang, bang, bang. Done. Let's go. Okay. Let's see. Let's see how that one does. I mean, these stock trades to me. Some of the stock trades I've got open, I've had open since the middle of May. I'm quite happy to run stuff, and I think it is interesting down here, EasyJet. Do we push back to the top of the range, and does it push further from there? But if it falls, then I'll be out of the trades, and we'll see what happens. What do you think about palladium? I've not traded that in recent weeks. I think it's a bit all over the place, perhaps? It's quite weak, isn't it? Oh, I suppose if you absolutely wanted to buck the trend and be a bottom fisher, it's perhaps interesting, isn't it? I mean, I would say that trend is still down. All right, so that's going back to March 22. So that's 16 months. So I'd rather sell a rally, but if you're a bottom fisher, if we flip it over to the hourlies, it's been knocked back near the low. So for me, it's a do-nothing market. But if you think, well, actually, this sell-off's been overdone, it could be a buyer with a stop under 1200. I wouldn't do it personally, but because the big trend is still down, I think, on that one. And I think that's it, isn't it? Oh, Delta Airlines, Kevin's mentioned. There's another possible airline. Let's have a look. Delta Airlines. Oh, yeah, that's done all right, isn't it? Again, a bit sideways over the last 12 to 15 months or so. But buy the dip on that one. So let's see. That's that. So really for next week, just to recap, stock markets, obviously. What are these markets doing now? Running away again. Let's see what happens. Let's see if we get a bit of a dip later on or something next week. DAX is perhaps particularly interesting because we could be on the cusp of a breakout there on the DAX. I think that's worth watching. What's my pound against the dollar trade doing? Oh, that's got a bit of a move on. That's interesting. Next week, this whole euro against the dollar, pound against the dollar stuff next week is interesting to see what happens with that. So that's it. I won't be doing any trades today. I might do two stock trades today, and I'll mention them in the WhatsApp group if I do them. But at the moment, I'm long the S&P, long oil, long pound against the dollar. I thought there was something else. Long gold as well. So and it's just been a bit of a crazy couple of days for me. So I'm quite happy just to sit it out and see where things are next week. So we will wrap things up there. To find out about the other stuff I do, go to the website, davidjonestrading.co.uk. You can sign up for the WhatsApp group there and get updates throughout the day. But we'll leave it there. So I should be back next week for the payrolls, the post-payrolls thing, live stream. So until then, good luck with your trading, and let's see where we are this time next week.